Hi, welcome to Ms. Boudin's class. I teach 8th grade language arts at Roosevelt Middle School. I'm going to start off with some emergency procedures. So here we have the classroom sign that I'm to hold as my students leave the classroom so that we can be easily identified, and also our fire extinguisher. The current folder with these students is currently being reassigned because some students have been added to my roster recently. In addition, I ensure that my students, as they enter the classroom, they enter quietly, and not only that, but that they put their backpacks behind the chairs so that we have a safe enough walking space to get to and from our classroom or our seats if we need to get up for any moment. In addition, we are fortunate enough to have an actual sink in our classrooms in case a student needs to clean their eyes for safety reasons or wash their hands or anything like that. I include soap, and usually the napkins are in the bin. In addition to that, in order to ensure that safety is there's enough space between the student's desk and my materials in terms of like wires or anything that they may get stuck on. And as far as formal procedures, we've received training from our school in order to make sure that we get our students back to safety. Our designated area is usually over there on the field so that we can reconvene and make sure that all of our students are safe in that space. Moving on to supplies, my students know that when we need supplies, if there's groups that are missing, such as markers, highlighters, or pencils, I have a bin for every student, for every group, which also includes their timer. Which allows us to stay on task in terms of having academic discussions or getting things ready. The AC is, I became quickly aware that it turns off every 4 hours, so I monitor it so that I can ensure that my students, that there is a healthy temperature in the classroom. The windows remain locked for safety reasons, and the intercom was checked and the volume is clear. We are able to hear any significant announcements that our administration may have towards us. Our clock is also on the correct time. Moving, in addition to the supplies, all of my students have their books, but in case that they may have forgotten their book or they may need an extra resource, the books are here right at the beginning of the classroom for any student who may need them. If the student needs supplies beyond the ones that I have shown, they know that they can come to this area where I have additional supplies, such as glue sticks, paper, hole punchers, and band-aids for safety reasons, Post-its, or anything else they may need. For safety reasons, I follow the protocol that the school has set on for any passes that a student may need to go to a nurse, the library, or the restroom. The students are able to turn in and make up assessments, and the gray bin usually are for those assignments. Otherwise, all assignments are turned in for their folder for the individual period. In terms of our groupings, as I'm moving on to that, the students are grouped in groups of 4. I find that most of my assignments clearly lay out a role for each team member. The students are grouped based on a diverse set of strengths. So each group definitely has someone who is able to encourage their peers and has that sense of empathy to support a student who may not be understanding something at the beginning of class. Some of the students within the group also have great public speaking skills to advocate for their group and if they need support. The groups vary in terms of writing ability, reading ability, and even organizational skills. I try to ensure that each team has at least one person who is very organized and is quickly able to guide their team in case that they may need to bring out a source from a previous lesson. In addition to this, I maintain my walls updated depending on the skill set that we are working. So currently these are close reading strategies, and I add them as we are learning. This is some of the language that students are to use when they explain answers that provide evidence for our class. These are also additional vocabulary words that our students are to use within their academic language as they're speaking to each other. And these are transitional words in which we've been working on. And I also set up our window to showcase the major theme that we're going to be working on this unit. These are some examples of group work that they've accomplished and actually assessed each other. So these are great models for students to follow. In addition to that, students know that they can also communicate with me in terms of any AVID conferences or anything like that, or meeting our A through G requirements. These are the materials that I use for students who may be struggling in additional areas and then might need additional scaffolds. The bell is often used to allow my students to know that our peer communication has stopped and now we need to share with the whole classroom. When we do share with the whole classroom, in order to make sure that we shift our attention to the speaker, I will use the following. I toss this ball, as most of my students are kinesthetic learners, to indicate that that is the speaker for our classroom at the moment. I also am fortunate to have a clicker in which I use to move my slides, which allows me to move throughout my classroom and support any student or go back to a slide very quickly. In terms of communication, I usually take up only a few minutes from their time so that I can use this time to collaborate with their team. The students know right away at the beginning what the theme of the lesson is going to be, where we are in the unit, and the focus of our book. At the beginning of class, students also know the homework expectation, the materials that they will need, and what we will be learning that day. Once again, going back to when it goes to communication, our students, in terms of being paired and things like that, it's very structured. Jigsaw is one of the many strategies that we're able to use so that we can collaborate with peers outside of our normal traditional groups. The directions for their peers to see are usually up there. I color code them because a lot of my students are visual learners, and that way they know where they need to be as they're working together so that we can stay on task and maintain our groups engaged. Going back to group communication, I tend to use a timer that becomes visible to the class by using the Elmo. I'm able to project it up and they know how much time they have to communicate with their teams. I usually add and embed an extra 30 seconds so that if there's one team member who has not said anything yet, the team has an opportunity to ask that student to provide their perspective on a particular part of the lesson so that everyone remains engaged. The students also know that if there's something they want to talk to me outside of the classroom pertaining to their safety at home or anything else or any additional support, that I am here on these times and these hours. And if they need to see me outside of these hours, I'm willing to be flexible and see them when they could best see me. In terms of behavior, I try to maintain it positive so they know that at the end of the week, I will be calling a parent from each of my class periods and letting them know that their student has either improved, has grown in a certain area, is now more engaged than before, or has just completed all these great assignments, or really provided a really in-depth conversation to and added to the classroom. In addition to that, I engage my students with our human rights, and that is where we base our behavioral management program from. We've been going over a few, and we'll be learning more as we go on. In addition, towards maintaining our classroom safe and ensuring that every student is being respected, the first novel that we started this school year is titled Inside Out and Back Again, and it's about a young girl who is very close in age to my students and who experiences a lot of discrimination and disrespect within her school, and the students have been able to put themselves in her place and start to see and brainstorm ways to make sure that we do not perpetuate that type of disrespect. In addition, in terms of rewards, I have our students the teams are named not only by 8th grade words, but usually very positive words that allow our students and remind them that our classroom's more about remaining relentless, persistent, and maintaining this momentum so that we're able to continue to move forward. We engage in healthy competitions, and then I'm able to reward the last team with additional points for their table or anything like that. In summation, this is my class, and I may have forgotten to mention that our Chromebooks are stored right here, and each student is assigned a number in which a number to their Chromebook. There's additional extra Chromebooks just in case one of them may not be functioning that day. We're very fortunate to have something like that. And I'm just gonna do a quick tour of the classroom just in case, because I may have moved around a lot.